I'm sorry. Hey, now it's on. Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome back to the Talking Philly Sports program. Talking Philly Sports with MattyB program here on the Edge of Philly Sports. Kind of messed that up. It was the microphone. I didn't have it on, and it kind of threw my game off. So let me give me a quick second to reset. All right, welcome back. I'm here. Talking Philly Sports with MattyB, EOP, Monday, April the 8th, 2024, with your boy, MattyB. And happy solar lunar total eclipse day, everybody. I hope your eclipse experience was as beneficial and as satisfying as mine was. Yep, that's right. I was forced to partake in it. I was forced to sit in a parking lot with other people that I didn't know, staring at the sun for an hour or so, watching it go dark for about literally 1 minute, and then driving home. So to all you eclipse people out there that really are into this thing, I mean, I'm not going to bag on you guys. It's all good, but it's not my thing. And yeah, it was sort of memorable. Sure. All right. But no, seriously, I hope everybody had a good eclipse if that's what you're into. I'm not into it, but I was forced to go in order to be a good partner. So I did it. Anyway, we got a bunch of stuff to talk about here on the program, and it's great to be back, as I am every Monday to kick off your Philadelphia Sports Week, and I do it with vim and vigor, and I do it with as much dedication and seriousness that I can provide with my brand of Philadelphia sports. And this week, as every week on this program seems to kind of say, there's a bunch to talk about. Everything from the Phillies, Flyers, and yeah, we're going to even sprinkle some Eagles talk into this evening's show, because we're getting close to the NFL draft. That's right. The NFL draft is bearing down upon us here on Edge of Philly Sports and on the rest of us, because the Eagles will have a chance here in the next 3 weeks to fully fix everything that ails them in one swoop, one kind of flick of the wrist, and then it's all going to be great. If you believe that's going to happen, then you're on the right network, but you're not at the right show. But yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about not necessarily the draft, but we're going to talk a little bit about the state of the Eagles heading into the draft, because that's what I like to do here. I like to give you my little take on things heading into this draft. We're also going to discuss some Phillies, as we're off to a rousing 4-5 start, a 9-game frustration match, all kinds of things going on with this team early on that have people kind of panicking, people kind of throwing in the towel, people kind of saying that it's just blow it all up. We're going to get into some Phillies. Well, I'll try to kind of straighten some things out for you guys with this team, not necessarily try to talk you off a ledge if you're on one, and hopefully I don't push you onto a ledge if you are not, because I'm going to try to kind of just kind of give you where I kind of have, or my take on things here with the Phillies. And then, of course, your Philadelphia Flyers, who, a month ago, things were a lot better, and things were looking a lot better for this team. But as we kind of limp down the stretch of the season, the Flyers are not necessarily, they're still technically kind of in the playoff picture. I mean, they're not in the playoff spot, but they're right there. But really, at this point, they're not playing like a playoff team. They're not playing like a team that would even give a team any kind of competitive match in the playoffs. So we'll get into some Flyer stuff and what the implications of them making the playoffs or not making the playoffs, or how we got to this position in the first place, all means. And we'll do all that here tonight. And then if there's any kind of time left over, which I doubt there will be, we'll talk about something else. So let's get it going, as we do every week here on the show. It's great to be here, by the way, man. I'm fired up about it. And we already got some comments coming in. Steve, how you doing? Does Matty Mayfair not talk Sixers? Steve, I do. Steve, I believe I've addressed this with you already. I am a huge basketball guy. Absolutely 100% love basketball, and I love the Sixers typically. But again, I'll say it again. I'll put it out there for you to hear again. I put myself on a gag order, a self-imposed gag order a few years back about the Sixers. I said until they trade Ben Simmons, I will not speak about this team, because I had reached a point with Ben Simmons. Well, they did. They traded him, and I started talking about him again. But then I got to that same point with Doc Rivers, and I said, okay, so gag order back in place. I will not talk about the Sixers until they fire Glenn Rivers. Yeah, well, they did. So I started talking about them for about a season. Then I slapped the gag order back on and said, I will not talk about the Sixers until they trade Joel Embiid and fire Daryl Morey, which they have not done yet. So there's what I stand on the Sixers. When I get to a point with something, I don't let it go, and I got to hold tight. And right now, I am not speaking of the Sixers until my demands are met. And then once they are met, I will talk about them again. Now, I'm not going to stop anybody for asking me a question about Sixers. I will surely address it. I'm following them. Of course, I know what's going on there, but I won't openly discuss it because I've reached that point with them. So, Steve, to answer your question, I do talk Sixers on normal times, I guess. Normal, happier times. So, yes, I do. Daniel says, yo, I guess that's, is YPOOO? Is that Yopo? I mean, is that a typo? Dan, you surprised me last week, Dan. You actually spoke. You actually added something other than yo, which I enjoyed that. So, time for UFL football. Phil Stifle is joining your network, sir. Yes. Yeah. Sound the trumpets. Lay out the red carpet because Phil's coming. That's right. The Trending in the AM. That cute little show is joining the Edge of Philly Sports, and I could not be actually happier. I think Phil's a good guy. It's a great program. It's going to help us out. It's going to help Phil out. It's going to help everybody involved. And as I said I said this internally, I said this internally to the chat group here a few days ago. We have enough room for more homers. This is a homer-driven network, so Phil just kind of fills in with the rest of them. But no, I'm happy Phil's coming. Phil's a good guy. He brings a lot to the table, a lot to the mix. I don't necessarily agree with anything he says, but that's not what this is about. This is about what Phil provides, and I'm glad to have Phil here. He's a good get for Al. He's a good get for EOP, and I'm sure we'll have a fruitful, long partnership and friendship, because that's what it's all about. So yeah, welcome to EOP, Phil. I've earned 1 thumbs up. Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Eagles got wrecked on the Reddick trade. Nolan Smith no show and Sweat mid. Yeah, we're going to get into some Eagles talk here, and I addressed this last week. Here's the deal. I get it. And listen, we're going to address some Eagle stuff here a little bit later on for you guys that are. Yeah, and by the way, time for UFL football. Welcome to the show. I've never seen you here before, and I'm glad you're here. So don't forget, like and subscribe. We would definitely appreciate it. But let's get things rolling on the program as we do every week, and that is with your day in Philadelphia sports history. And let's roll all the way back to the year 1934. And I was not there. Again, contrary to popular belief, I did not actually physically witness this, nor was I present for this. I am reading about it and regurgitating it. So I just want to get that out of the way before I have to field all the where you in this moment. Now, I was not there personally. So on this day in 1934, the Phillies, or the city of Philadelphia, I should say, played its first MLB game on a Sunday. Legally. Yeah, legally. Listen, you think things in the world are tough now? Apparently in 1934, when or prior to 1934, we had blue laws in Philadelphia that forbade the playing of forbade gaming or gambling or sports events, major professional sports events on Sundays. That's right. Can you believe that? And it apparently was voted down in the fall of 1933. So this was the first shot they had to do it on a Sunday. In 1934, it was an exhibition game between the Phillies and the A's, which the Phillies, of course, won 8-1. Again, I'm not saying of course because hey, don't you guys remember that because we were all there together? I'm just saying, why wouldn't the Phillies beat the A's? They beat them 8-1 in Shibe Park. So it was the first day, or the first legal Sunday of gaming and professional sports allowed to be played in the city of Philadelphia, and that was your day in Philadelphia sports history. And that segment here on the program is brought to you by the good folks over at the Cherry Injury Law Group. Dave Cherry and Company for all your workman's compensation, motor vehicle accident, personal injury, and criminal law. Contact Dave Cherry at 610-565-0300, and he will take care of you the best possible way that he can. So, yeah, the first legal Sunday of gameplay in the city of Philadelphia in 1934 again. Do you remember the you guys think it's rough now? Imagine living in that society. You can't, I mean, come on, man. Does that make any sense for anybody? But yeah, there you go. The amateur type trade, like the one Howie pulled to get Barkley, is beneath him, good sir. The amateur type trade, like the one Howie pulled to get Saquon, is beneath him, good sir. Yeah, I mean, I'm really kind of confused by that because they didn't trade for Saquon, right? They signed him as a free agent, correct? I mean, is that what you're trying to say? Or are you saying this amateur trade kind of is beneath Howie based on the fact that he got Saquon Barkley? Is that? I mean, please clarify, because I want to get your point right. Let's go to our first segment, and I was going to start with the Eagles, but I'm not going to do that tonight. I am going to start with our Philadelphia Flyers. Rough sledding these days, folks. A rough week in Flyer land. All losses and all very pathetic losses. One pathetic after the other, as the Flyers find themselves in the middle of a 7-game winless streak. It is a winless streak because there is a game or two in there that they've actually gotten points through either, I think it was overtime losses. But I'm semantics there. Of course, you can call it a losing streak if you like, but 7-game winless streak. It has taken them from a firm entrenchment in that third spot in the Metro Division, 6th overall pretty much in the East, and has shot them all the way down out of the playoffs as they are sitting here literally tied with the Pittsburgh Penguins for that 8th spot in the East. But they are out of the playoff picture because the Penguins have a game on hand. So by virtue of the tiebreaker, they would actually have it if they had the more points, or they had the better opportunity to get to the playoffs based on the remaining schedule. So the Flyers find themselves sitting on the outside looking in, and a lot of people are kind of wondering why. And a lot of people are kind of, rallying for some answers. And it's legitimate questions. It's a legitimate way to think of things. But I'm going to provide a different little thing on this. We're going to break this down into 3 areas of where I think this fall has happened. But before I get into the 3 areas of where I think this fall from grace has occurred for the Flyers, I want to go back and remind everybody that not more than 4, 5, 6 months ago, there wasn't a snowball's chance in hell the Flyers were going to be even competitive in the month of April. Right, they were a team that was they admitted it. This is a rebuild. We're all in on a rebuild. We're all in on winning a Stanley Cup, and unfortunately, that's not going to happen this season. We have a lot of work to do. We got to move some people around. We got to move some pieces around. We got to bring some talent here. We got to let go of some talent. We got to evaluate some talent, but we're not necessarily looking at the playoffs this year. That's not what we want. We really, the overall picture here is to find out everything we got and everything we need. And hopefully along the way, we can stay competitive. And hopefully along the way, we can provide a little bit of a shot in the arm to Philadelphia hockey. And unfortunately, the Flyers, they did that. Not only did they provide the shot in the arm, but they provide some really, really good hockey, an awesome brand of young, just scrappy players who would never give up in games. They didn't have certain pieces of talent. They don't have much goal scoring there, but they were able to infuse kind of their youthfulness, their speed, their determination, their grit. They got an identity. They did all those things that we've been asking for Flyers teams to be for years now. And they figured it out this year, but they just didn't have the talent to kind of go along with that identity. And I'm not saying that you can't have one without the other, but it definitely surely helps to have talent. And but they were able to kind of start down a new road. But along the way, they were winning games, and they were winning them in droves, and they were doing really well. And so well that they found themselves locked in a playoff spot. And of course, the Carter Hart situation occurs, and we lose our starting goalie, and we have really no choice right now but to turn it over to a young rookie. We had no choice. There was nothing else that we could have done there in that situation. The Flyers are not devoid of goaltending talent in this organization. They got a lot of it. It's just all underdeveloped and unproven. And John Tortorella had to make a decision. What am I going to do here? We're in a playoff push. I just lost my starting goalie. It's the All-Star break. And he's not coming back probably forever. And we don't have another veteran. I can't go out to the goalie tree. And God forbid that tree in Philadelphia has been barren for years or bare for years. And I can't pluck another goalie. I'm going to have to go with what I got. So he turned over the reins to Sam Ersson. It was a gamble. This is a guy who was on his rookie season. What was he penciled in for, like 22 starts this season? Sam Ersson has started 45 games for the Flyers so far this year. And obviously, the gamble didn't work. It was too much for Sam Ersson. Ersson's done. He's cooked, tired. He's deer in the headlights, asleep at the wheel, whatever you want to, whatever phrase you want to ride there. That's what Sam Ersson is. Not that Sam Ersson's career is cooked, but Sam Ersson's cooked this year. He wasn't ready for the burden of being a number one everyday goalie. Now, whether or not that's something he's going to figure out going forward, or whether or not he's never going to figure that out and never be an everyday goalie, that remains to be seen. But the Flyers had no other choice but to turn things over to a rookie. They gambled and they lost bad. And now we're going through kind of a myriad of young goalies that are getting opportunities to play. You got Fedotov, who played the other night, looked 20 times worse than Ersson does. You got Kovalsov, who's down there with the Phantoms. You got a bunch of other goalies who are languishing in leagues around the world right now that eventually will come over here and help us out. So if there's something there, there's goaltending talent here. It's just unproven and undeveloped goaltending talent. So that's the first step in the road downhill. Let's face it. That's the first wheel to pop off the cart is the goaltending. We lost it. We lost. Not to say that Carter Hart was the greatest thing since sliced bread. I was never a Carter Hart kind of guy. But what Carter Hart provided and Ersson provided together, that duo, was a hell of a duo. And they were able to really kind of complement each other all season long. And it was working well. But that was gone, and Sam Ersson was given the number one job and just couldn't do it. So that's number one. And that's reason one why the season has kind of led us here. Reason number two is a little bit less about personnel and more about style, right? I mentioned the gritty, scrappy, tenacious, 100 miles an hour type play that the Flyers play. Listen, maybe that was too much for this team for 82 games. Maybe that was too much. Now, that's a John Tortorella brand of play. It's not something that he adopted this year and said, you know what, I like this group of kids that we got. I am going to run them ragged. No, John Tortorella has always head coached that way. He's always had that type of style. He's always wanted his teams to play like that. That is one of the reasons why, after a little bit, the message with the team kind of starts falling on deaf ears because these players are tired and they don't feel like playing like that anymore. In a John Tortorella system, you can afford to take a night off. You really can because of that type of style they play. So to ask this team, now Tortorella's had success with it. He's won a cup with it. He's gone to numerous conference and Stanley Cup finals with it. It has worked more than it has not. But it also it also leads to his ultimate dismissal with an organization a little bit later on down the line. And the Flyers are falling victim to that right now. And I think it's because they're just gassed. They're just tired. They're worn out. And playing 82 games in that style obviously was too much for them this year. Now, will it be too much for them next year? I don't know. Will it be too much for them to continue on down the road with John Tortorella? Is this going to aid into the John Tortorella message starting to kind of get droned out by the Philadelphia Flyer players? Potentially, it could. But right now, for this day, it's obvious that the style of play, the style of play on the ice, the personnel groupings, the 11-7 that he plays all the time, 11 forwards, 7 defensemen that he goes with, was just too much for them. When you're playing 11-7, you're rolling 3 lines of forwards and 2 defensive pairings. That's really all you're rolling, and you got an extra guy that kind of floats in between for the forwards and for the defensemen. That's what you're rolling. And that's kind of tough, man. That's kind of tough. Or you're rolling 3-3. 3-3 with an extra guy. And if you're rolling 3 lines, that's a lot to ask of your forwards. And especially it's a lot to ask of unproven young forwards who are just kind of trying to figure themselves out. So maybe it was too much with this group. Maybe you should have rolled more of a traditional, 4-line kind of configuration. You look at the defense. Travis Sanheim and Cam York are averaging somewhere around 30 minutes a game on the ice. Holy crap. I mean, that's a lot of ice time. You're going to feel the effects of that at the end of the season. Now, they're on the ice because of a couple reasons. Injuries to the defense have prevented them to come off the ice. They got to be out there because there's nobody else to go to. And also the style of play. So it's a lot to ask of those guys. And maybe it's too much. Or maybe ultimately it was too much to ask of this group for 82 games. So I'm not saying it as an excuse. I'm saying it as a reality that the style of play of John Tortorella on and off the ice has taken its toll on this team through 82 games. Now, maybe moving forward into next season, because I totally believe he's back at least next year. Maybe there's better personnel groupings, or maybe there's a better understanding of what these players can offer you, and they go out and they build their team for next season with a different understanding. Sean Couturier, obviously the stuff going on with him, and I mean on the ice, not necessarily off the ice, but the on the ice, 2 years gone from back surgery, he obviously couldn't handle the minutes that he was given. I mean, they played the crap out of him. What was he averaging, 20 minutes of ice time through January? That's a lot to ask for somebody that hasn't played in the league for 2 years and coming off major back surgery. Maybe we find a different way to utilize Sean Couturier next season. Maybe we find a way to stagger his minutes or to stagger his time on the ice. I don't know. But obviously the style of play has definitely has taken its toll on this team. And then you factor in the injuries, you factor in a lot of that stuff, and maybe it has taken its toll. And the last reason that I believe that this has happened was because this was bound to happen from day one. This was what the Flyers were. They were a first-year rebuild team that had a lot of plus sides, a lot of potential, and they were meeting that potential for the most of the season. But all season long, I complained on Clear the Ice, the Flyer post-game show here on EOP. We don't have enough horses in the barn. I said that many times, and I truly believe that. We average less than 3 goals a game. Now, that's not since recent times. That's been all season long. We've been over 3 goals a game for a little bit, but for the majority of the season, we have come out underneath 3 goals a game on average. We are one of the most heaviest shot-producing teams in the National Hockey League. Through 78 of our hockey games, we average 33.2 shots a game. That is up there near the league top echelon. But we're only averaging 2.8 goals a game because we can't finish. We don't have finishers here. We have shooters. We have guys who widely fire the puck at the net, but we don't have finishers. And that's because, again, we don't have the horses in the stable. We need those superstars. We need those finishers. We need those goal scorers. We don't have them. Got a great bunch of nice role players, but we don't have the superstars. And that's not been something that just popped up. That's been a situation all season. And eventually, when you factor in the fatigue, you factor in the injuries, you factor in the lack of goaltending, this stuff all begins to add up, and it adds up to a 7-game winless streak. Now, the question I want to keep asking everybody is why now? Right? Why are we falling on hard times now? We just ran through a gauntlet of teams that were Stanley Cup contenders. And we were okay. We won the majority of those games. We came out on the plus side. We held our own, minus a couple of those games. So why are we having problems with the Montreal Canadiens, the Buffalo Sabres, and the Columbus Blue Jackets of the world? Why? And I think it's just a simple a matter of it's just catching up with them right now. And the goaltending is probably the biggest part here. You know, when you have a goaltending group that's averaging less than 80% of goal save percentage, less than 80%. That's like 1 of 5 shots are going in. You're not going to be able to live through that. The goaltending has totally come off the rails. The other thing I want to look at is, again, kind of going towards that how we ended up here thing. Since March 9th, the Flyers have been shorthanded 35 times. Now, the shorthand, the PK, has been the Flyers' strength all season long, up to March 9th. March 9th and on, the Flyers have been shorthanded 35 times, and they've given up 12 shorthanded goals. They are giving up goals at a 65% clip. So 65% of the time that the Flyers are shorthanded, teams are scoring on them. That was unheard of prior to March 9th. Now, of course, we remember March 8th was the trade deadline, right? That was the NHL trade deadline. And what did the Flyers do on the trade deadline? They sent Sean Walker to the Colorado Avalanche. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, MattyB, are you about to talk to me and tell us that a player in Sean Walker that was part of a salary dump that the Flyers had to take on from the Los Angeles Kings in order to complete a 3-team trade to get rid of Ivan Provorov last summer, are you telling me that that player was so important to this defense that the lack of his presence has created everything you're seeing right now? And I'm about to tell you, yeah, it was. As weird and ridiculous as that sounds, the lack of Sean Walker has been a death roll for this Flyers decor, on top of the injuries that they've suffered, on top of the goaltending situation. All that factors in. Sean Walker's absence from this team has been a death roll for the defense on the Flyers. And you know, it's the reality of it. And then the question now comes up, why in the hell would they trade a player that was so important, regardless of who he was? Why would Danny B trade him? Well, don't you remember what Danny B said back in the beginning of the season when he said it's not about the playoffs, it's about the rebuild? I mean, that's out of the GM's mouth. It's not out of mine. That's why Sean Walker was traded, because Danny Briere saw more potential in trading Sean Walker than he did by keeping Sean Walker. Sean Walker can come back next year. He's a free agent. But at the time, moving him was better because we could get some assets in return for him to help us in the future. So those are the factors that I believe have led the Flyers to where they are right now. And that is on the cusp of not making the playoffs. But as I've said this over the last few nights on the Clear the Ice. Sorry, I do multiple post-game shows. But as I said on Clear the Ice, if I would have tapped you on the shoulder in July and said, April 16th or April the 8th, we'd be talking about the Flyers right there for a playoff spot. They would be on the outside, or they'd be literally tied with the final team or for the last wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. And if I would have told you that, you would have 99.9% of you would have told me, stop talking right now. I'm in. I'll take it. I'll buy it. I'm woohoo. Let's do it. So I think the season has been a success regardless of whether they make the playoffs or not. Now, it's going to be very interesting going forward into next season, into the free agency period, into the draft, what this team does. Because we've identified problems. We've identified new problems that need to be addressed. And we still have some of the old problems that need to be addressed. Some contracts need to be taken care of. Ristolainen, Cam Atkinson, they need to be sent away somehow. I don't know if that's going to happen. But, you know, those are just two players that probably need to be dealt with this offseason. And I don't know if we're going to be able to do that in one offseason. But it's going to be interesting to see. But the relevancy of the Flyers has returned. So for those of you who are interested out there, that is why I think the Philadelphia Flyers have fallen so hard from the playoff heavens. And it's not necessarily something that should be surprising to anybody. It was always there. It was always there in front of our face. You just factor in a couple injuries, a felony arrest, and time, and there you have it. So that's my take on the Philadelphia Flyers as we sit here in late or early April, late in their season. But don't forget, we got you covered here on EOP. That's right. We got you covered to the bitter end of this season. This is our Clear the Ice schedule for the rest of this season. Tomorrow night, me and Mike got you for the Canadians. On Thursday, it's Pat and Al. On Saturday, me and Pat. And then on next Tuesday, April 16th, for the season finale, regular season finale, I should say, me and Pat against the Capitals. So we got you covered here on Clear the Ice to the bitter end, and hopefully beyond. It would be a great story if they would find their way in. But as I said at the top of this little rant, I mean, I don't know if this is a team that I'd want to kind of push into the playoffs right now. I mean, if we don't make the playoffs, right, we are a lottery team in the NHL. Yeah, every non-playoff team in the NHL is a lottery team, and they get put in the lottery. Now, the odds of us getting the number 1 overall draft pick are slim to none, because we never do. Even if we had the worst record in the league, we'd still find our way out of that pick. But we are a lottery team if we don't make the playoffs. So that means a potential higher draft pick than we would for making the playoffs and then getting unceremoniously bounced out in the first round. So kind of looking at that right now more to be more beneficial for this team. I think all the lessons have been learned that they can be learned for this season, both on and off the ice, both player, coaches, management. I think everything has been achieved that they need to achieve. And now I think it's time to start looking at next season and beyond to get this team where it really needs to be. So there's my Flyer rant. And this portion of the show, my Flyer rant, was sponsored by Dolan's down there in Ridley, PA, Ridley Park, Ridley Park. Sorry about that. And don't forget, Wiffle Mania, May 25th at Dolan's. Mickey Morandini and John Kruk will be on hand as Dolan's will renew its annual Wiffle Mania extravaganza. And EOP will be there. That's right. We will be covering the event. I don't know who's covering it, but EOP will cover it. Make sure you head down to Dolan's. Bring the kids too. It's open to the family, and it's a bunch of fun. If you've never been to one, I highly recommend that you go. You'll have a blast. You'll get to meet Mickey Morandini and John Kruk as well, and who knows else who might be there, because typically it's going to be more than 2 of them. Typically somebody else might show up, or a couple others might show up as well. So head on down to Dolan's today. Head on down to Dolan's today, but May 25th is that event. So there you have it. All right, let's take a look at this here. Let me take a look at what we got going on. The move is beneath. I guess the trade is beneath the Eagles. How he started beginning of last year as the league's most premier GM. He is losing it. Obviously, time for UFL football is new to this show, and I'm about to jump into that here in a minute. But let's go to the Phillies now. I want to save the best. No, it's not the best for last, but I just want to save the better for last. But Phillies, 9 games in, 4-5, are actually a game better than they were at this point last season. If you remember, they were 3-6 to start the 2023 season, and the sky was falling then too. So now the sky is falling again. We are in a situation with this baseball club that is very familiar to us. Slow start, certain aspects of this team not operating correctly, certain things not happening the way they're supposed to, certain players not playing the way they're supposed to, and certain things happening that they're not supposed to. And you get a myriad of people who want to fire Rob Thompson. You want a myriad of people who want to get rid of the entire roster. You have a myriad of people who want to fire Dave Dombrowski. You have a myriad of people who want to fire a lot of people right now and that are getting frustrated. And I am 100% on board with every one of you. But, baseball is a marathon. And let's face it, 162 games and 9 games, and really 9 games is not a large enough sample size to make any sort of intelligent, observation for the season. Now, it's definitely a large enough sample size to make an intelligent observation for the time. And the Phillies this week, coming off 3-3, they had a very interesting opening weekend against the Braves, and then they started out in the rain, the cold, and all that at CBP, and they found their way to lose 2 out of 3 to the Reds, and then they went down to D.C., and they were able to win 2 out of 3 from the Nationals. They should have swept that series, but they didn't because of some of the problems that are plaguing this team right now. And I don't necessarily want to dwell on the problems that are plaguing this team because they're very well known. And they're really uttered by a lot of people all the time, and they're the same things that plagued them last year. And that's kind of where I'm headed with this, though, because 9 games is not a sample size for us to throw the cards in for the season. It's not. And you'd be foolish to do so. But the trends are what are concerning. The same things that are ailing this team now are the same things that ailed them when they walked off the field last year. They're the same things that were ailing them last season when they started off 3-6. They are the same issues. Untimely hitting, shoddy defense, poor base running ability. The pitching somewhat stabilized itself over the last few days, which is a positive thing. But the other aspects of this team, that's what's concerning to me. It's concerning that we, for some odd reason, can't figure out how to get certain hitters to hit consistently. It's concerning to me that we have millions of dollars invested in this baseball team and they can't field a ground ball without booting it across the infield. It's concerning to me that a Major League Baseball player doesn't understand the difference between taking a secondary lead off of first and then versus overcommitting on a fly ball to go to second base. It's concerning to me that they lack that awareness and judgment ability. Rob Thompson promised everybody, and I've been harping on this since I've been on the Fightins Final. I harped on this, I think, on this show last week. He promised us that these things were going to be worked on in spring training. Then I hear the excuses from the Homer crowd. Oh, well, they were dealing with a flu virus or some sort of virus that was running through the clubhouse. Well, that same Homer crowd told me last year the slow start was because of the World Baseball Classic. What's it going to be next year, folks? What's the Homer crowd going to give me for the slow start next year? Why can't we just say what we really feel? That there's something missing from this club. Now, is it the players per se? No. They got some world-class athletes on this baseball team. They got some great baseball players. If the Phillies decided right now to say we're going down the wrong road and they started trading off the assets of this team right now today, we could rebuild the farm system twice over in one baseball season by what we could get in return value for all these players. 100% agree with that. They got some good baseball players on this team. But so then what's the problem? It's got to be coaching. It's got to be. Whether they're not listening, whether they're not getting the right messages, whether the manager's not backing it up, whether they're I don't know, but there's nothing. You got to be better. And it's the fundamental things, man. It's the fundamental. Kyle Schwarber yesterday, God bless his soul, was stealing in a game where once again the bats were dead. We finally got a base runner on, and he ran us out of the inning. Now, earlier in the same game, he ran us out of another inning for not understanding the difference between a secondary lead off of first during a fly ball and then overcommitting the second. And he got picked off going back to first. That stuff can't happen, man. That stuff can't happen when your offense is clicking, let alone when the offense isn't. And that's coaching, folks. Pure and simple. That's coaching. And I don't want to hear the excuse of the modern day athlete. Well, you got to talk to him a certain way. Okay, fine. Does the excuse of you don't do what I say, you don't play, does that still work? John Tortorella uses it all the time. Is Rob Thompson capable of saying to his players, I better see X, Y, and Z or you're not going to play? Or is he afraid that you can't bench a Bryce Harper? You can't bench a Kyle Schwarber. You can't bench a Trey Turner. You can't bench a Nick Castellanos. Is he afraid? It's coaching. From Kevin Long, who I hear all day long and what a great hitting guru coach he is. Wow. If he's a great coach, I would really like to see a bad one. From Dusty Woffman and his amazing base running coaching abilities. And to the manager, who once again has us off on the wrong path. 9 games in, and they're 4-5. I get that. But at what point do we start pointing the finger at some of these coaches? And at what point does some accountability get assessed to this team from the coaches? They're a good baseball team. They're lacking something right now. They're lacking motivation. They're lacking maybe fear from their manager that if they don't perform, they will sit. They're lacking something that has them off to this type of start. And I would love to know why. Kind of going over some numbers early on. 9 games in, they've committed 7 errors as a team. Trey Turner has committed 3 of those errors. Last year, Trey Turner committed 26 errors. The most by a long shot of his career. Why suddenly he can't field the ball here in Philadelphia? Huh? Why? I don't get it, man. I don't get it. And not to mention his offensive struggles. The team has struck out 81 times through 9 games. It doesn't take a mathematician to figure out what that average is, right? It's 9 times a game. Now, I would be normally kind of like alarmed by that, but I'm not. That was their average last year. 9 times a game they struck out. Why has that not improved? Once again, Rob Thompson told me he was going to do that. They were going to work on that down in spring training. They were going to be more disciplined at the plate. Was Nick Castellanos not present for that session? Because he's about as undisciplined right now as he's ever been here. 9 strikeouts a game. 9 games. Not a large sample size, but a trend. Same amount of strikeouts they had per season last year. That was 162 games. Nothing has changed. Why? Were they sick that day? The vaunted homers told me here on the EOP, they were sick. So certain things weren't covered at spring training. What the hell does that mean? They had over 30 days together down in Clearwater. They couldn't get a day where everybody was not sick and together? Come on, man. 9 strikeouts a game. Same as last year's league average. Nothing has changed. Hits. The Phillies have bashed out 66 hits through 9 games, which is about over 7 a game. I can live with that. Absolutely can live with that. Runners in scoring position. Batting average, 15 for 63. The Phillies are batting with runners in scoring position. 15 for 63 for a 238 batting average. 9 games. Not a large sample size, but this is a stat that we all know has been a problem for at least 3 seasons now. 15 for 63. The Phillies have left 57 runners on base in total, either it be on third, second, first, bases loaded, whatever. They have left 57 runners on base for over 6 a game average. Last year, they left 6.4 on average runners on base. Nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. Where's the coaching here? Where is it? Why have things not changed for this team? 9 games of a sample size in 2024 is a low number. 162 games in 2023 is not. And I'm seeing a lot of comparisons to the 2 seasons. Why are these things not changed? You know, as I mentioned, it's a really good team, but they're not playing well. Something is missing. A piece. Is it the manager? Is it the hitting coach? Is it the pitching? Or is it Dusty Wathman? Is it all 3? What's missing here? Where is the accountability on this baseball team for a player that doesn't do well? For a trend that's not broken? Or bad trend, I should say. Not a good one, but a bad trend that's not broken. Where is the accountability from the manager on that? Where? It's the same thing. They've scored in 2024, 9 games. They've scored 36 runs for 4 runs on average a game. That's not going to cut it in any level of baseball, maybe with the exception of Little League. That's not going to work, 4 runs a game. You're not going to win many games in baseball, in Major League Baseball, scoring 4 runs a game. You're not. You need at least 5 or above. And again, where's the accountability? They finished last season, I think, with 6.8 runs a game, which was well above league average. All I'm saying is this. I'm not telling you to jump off the ledge. I'm not telling you to burn the boats. I'm not telling you let's run Rob Thompson out of this town in effigy. I'm not saying to do any of that. But I am saying that there are some problems with this team that maybe go beyond the players, that maybe go beyond what you're seeing on the field. It might go beyond that. What's the message in the locker room? What's the message in the clubhouse? You know, Kevin Long, this hitting coach guru. What the hell? I mean, what does that mean when we have such a streaky ass team? How does he get that reputation with this streaky ass team? Dusty Watham, does he know? I mean, we've seen it in the past. Players just blow right through with stop signs. They don't care. I mean, was there any accountability in that last year during the playoffs a couple times? Players blowing through a stop sign, players stopping when he was telling them to go. I mean, I don't think they respect him out there. And then Rob Thompson. Where's his accountability? And again, I'm not saying fire him. I'm just saying I think maybe the piece that's missing is not necessarily a piece on the field. So 4-5, the Phillies are on right now as we speak. They're starting a 3-game set in St. Louis. Spencer Turnbull on the mound tonight. And here you go on the Fightins final this week. We got you covered. Tonight, you got Al coming to you after the Phillies game. Tomorrow is Pat. And then me, your boy MattyB, on Wednesday, wrapping up the Cardinal series against the Cardinals. That segment on the program was brought to you by our friends over at Sherry's Tickets. That's right. Great prices, no hidden fees. Sports, concert, theater, www.sherrytickets.com. Family owned and operated, no hidden fees. And on top of that, you'll save an additional 10% at checkout when you enter the promo code EOP10. That is EOP10. Save an additional 10% at checkout when you enter the promo code EOP10 at Sherry Tickets at www.sherrytickets.com. So hurry on over there for all your ticketing needs for everything in your life. They'll have you covered for sports, concerts, and theater tickets. So, all right, that's going to bring me to my final segment. That's right. I've stayed away from the Eagles for a couple of weeks, and I want to go to them real quick as we prepare for the NFL draft. April 27th, 24th. Is it the day? Yeah, 24th, 25th, something around there. Is your NFL draft. Philadelphia Eagles will start the process. Hopefully, well, not start it, but culminating the rebuild process with this draft. Howie Roseman piloting his 9th draft. That's right, 9 drafts now that Howie Roseman has been completely in control of player personnel with the Philadelphia Eagles. It'll be his 9th draft that he'll be in charge of. Are you feeling it, right? Are you feeling any good? Are you feeling a man who in the 8 previous drafts that he's had from 2016 to 2024, we only have 3 first-round draft picks out of those drafts still currently playing for this football team. 3 out of 8 first-round picks, or out of 7, actually. We didn't have one in 2017 or 18. 3 first-round picks are currently still on this team that Howie has drafted since 2016. Are we feeling it, man? Are we feeling that out of the players that he has drafted, he's drafted 57 players. And that really, if you grade them all out, 34 of them have busted out. Either are no longer with the team or don't play any significant role for this team. And only 14 of them have kind of busted in, have like graded in as major contributors to this football team. 14 out of 57. Are you feeling it? Are you feeling that currently there's about 9 players that we don't really know much about? The book is still out on them. Now, some of them are deservingly so because they've only been on the team for a year. A couple of them, it's getting a little long in the tooth to make a decision on whether or not they're a hit or a bust. But with all that being said, Howie Roseman's going to pilot his 9th draft, and that'll be the draft, the newest, most important draft in Eagle history is the one that's going to happen here in a couple weeks. And Howie Roseman's going to take us to the promised land. I really believe that. And that leads me to my final segment because I want to address my, once again, I find myself in a defensive posture. And I always seem to find myself in a defensive posture here on the Edge of Philly Sports when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles because I am vilified. That's right. MattyB. Me. I'm vilified as being an anti-Eagle shtick is what I've been told. Not a supporter of my team, I've been told. And I constantly had to find myself going back in time and reinforcing why I am, right? And I am biggest Eagle fan going. I'm just not buying anymore. I'm not buying what they're selling, right? I haven't been doing that since 2019. I told you and I'll restate this. I remember the moment that it dawned on me when I was officially out. It was right after the Eagle-Patriot game in 19. I was sitting on a subway. I'm down in the L terminal. Looking to get a ride back up to the Northeast. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, now I was a little in a few sheets to the wind. I'll admit to that. But I remember thinking to myself, I'm done. I can't I can't anymore until Howie Roseman's fired. I can't anymore until Carson Wentz is sent away. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And that was the moment that I went out. And I've been out ever since. And every year when I think I can come back in, they keep pushing me further out. And this year really is not shaping up to be anything different. And I'm going to get into some points here about that. Johan Rose with a double and RBI, single tonight. Let's go. Yeah, that's good. That's right. That's Big Al, by the way, and he'll be covering you on the Fightins final tonight. So Johan Rojas, yeah, I saw that he made a really nice play in center field earlier in the game too, Al, defensively. You know, I'm team Rojas. I will not deny that. I think he provides more to this team on it than off it. Now, the only issue is whether or not we can afford to have two defensive center fielders on this team and no offensive center fielders, because we have Pache as well. Both of them are pretty much known better for their gloves than they are their bats. Can we afford that? And it's going to come down to what's best for the player at the end of the day, not for the team. So, but I am team Rojas for the foreseeable future until he proves otherwise. It's great to see him that it hit the ball out of the infield. Anyway, back to the Eagles. So at 9 o'clock here in about 10 minutes, and I'm going to wrap this up in 8 minutes because I don't want to go over my time. I want to make sure you guys are over at Party on Broad because this is their night of their big board night. They're going to give you the draft basically, and I want to make sure you guys get that in full. But here's the thing, and not that I'm going to preempt their show. It's just that I don't want to lose any of my viewers for them. You know, I'm selfish like that. But some of those guys on that show specifically think that I'm, it's a shtick, that I really, that I'm tired of the Eagle hate. It's not hate, man. It's never been hate. I've never hated the Eagles at all. But it's Eagle realism, right? Versus the fantasy lands that they live in. So heading into this season, right? Heading into this draft, and I already kind of went over some of the very, stunning draft numbers of Howie Roseman over 8 years of being in complete control of the NFL, of the draft. 3 first-round picks currently still on the team. And by the way, 2 of them for the last 2 drafts, right? So let's just going to leave it there. I want to kind of gloss over a few things. Starting this week, I'm going to do sort of a retrospective on the Eagles heading into the season. We're going to talk offense, defense, and the intangibles, right? And I'm going to start with the offense right now. And why I don't feel like this offense is going to be any better, if possibly worse than it was last year, based on what has happened so far this season, this offseason. And I'm going to start with the man in charge of the offense, right? The man. The guy that runs the offensive train. And that's your head coach, right? That's the head coach. Nick Sirianni, right? Face it. Hey, you can tell me all day long that the offensive coordinator is in charge of the offense. He's not. It's the head coach. Just like the head coach is in charge of the defense and the special teams. Head coach is in charge of the team. Now, the first question I want to ask everybody out there, based on the final 4 teams of last year's playoffs, for the conference championship games, what was it? It was San Francisco, Detroit, Baltimore, and Kansas City, right? Out of those 4 teams, is Nick Sirianni better than any of those head coaches? Any of them? Would you take Nick Sirianni over any of those other 4 head coaches? Honestly? Would you take Nick over Andy Reid? No. Would you take him over John Harbaugh? No. Would you take him over, what's his face out in San Francisco? No. Would you take him over Dan Campbell? Maybe. Maybe you can make an argument for Dan Campbell. But the others you can't, right? So what makes us think that if we got a head coach who doesn't really stack up with the final 4 from last year, what makes us think that we're going to be somehow this juggernaut and find our way back to the Super Bowl? Oh, yeah, that's right, because Nick Sirianni was there in 2022. Yeah, okay. But anyway, honestly, would you take him over any one of them, with maybe the exception of Dan Campbell? I know I wouldn't, and out there you wouldn't either, okay? So I just want to kind of set the table. Let's go at the offense right now. Heading into this season, and we're still kind of early in the construction phase, but are we? The draft is in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. The final touches on the offense should be being put on in 2 weeks. Unless you count the post-June 1st cutting period as the final touches. But is this offensive line better this year than it was last? Is it? Do you feel more comfortable with this current version of the Eagle offensive line than you did last year? Remember, We're losing Jason Kelce. What he's going to not have on this team by his presence not being there, both on and off the field, are huge. And they're factors that this team has yet to really, I think, fully understand or comprehend. And more importantly, it's a factor that the fan base hasn't fully comprehended either. What losing Jason Kelce is going to really mean for this offensive line. They're losing the captain. They're losing the heart and soul of the line. Now, whether or not whoever the damn replacement is for him in the middle, and right now it's kind of up in the air between Juergens and Hennessy, the guy they brought in from Atlanta. I don't know if that guy Hennessy is even in the mix to start, but he's probably going to see some time. But are we prepared for what next season is going to look like for the offensive line without Jason Kelce? Are we? Because I don't think we are. Because how many times are you going to find yourself comparing Juergens to Jason Kelce? Even though we're going to say we can't do that. It's not fair to the Juergens. How many times are we going to do it? About 1 billion. Silently. In the dark. The offensive line is going to take a step backwards next season. Whether you want to believe it or not, it's just fact. Now, whether that step is a complete step all season long, a half step in the first half, half step forward in the second half, I don't know. But it's going to be a step back. It's going to be a different look. It's not going to be the same group. Literally, they've lost players. Not just Kelce. So, heading into the season, is the offensive line better or worse than it was last year? It's worse, based on those things. Now, are they irrevocably worse? Are they 1 to 100 worse? No, but they're worse. It's worse than it was last season, based on losing Kelce. And how long it takes them to recover from that, I don't know. And how long does it take the Eagle fan base to recover from that might be the biggest question. Because you're going to be riding this poor kid like he's a show pony if he doesn't kind of immediately fit in and seamlessly do what Jason Kelce did. And that's unfair. All right? Let's look at the running backs. Is Saquon Barkley really that much better than DeAndre Swift? Is he really? Is he that much better for what we're going to ask him to do? Because we didn't ask DeAndre Swift to do much. And if we're paying all that money for Saquon Barkley to do the same amount of work that DeAndre Swift did, why the hell would we do that? Why not just sign DeAndre Swift? And now we're going to have him running behind a Jason Kelce-less offensive line, which in theory shouldn't make much difference, but we already know it will. So is the running back room better than it was last year? I say at the very least bit, and I'm stretching here with this, it's the same than it was last year. I don't think the upgrade of Saquon Barkley is that much of a difference maker in the running back room right now. I don't. Based on the fact that we don't run the football. Right? Now, we'll get to the philosophy change here in a minute. We don't run the football enough for me to justify Saquon Barkley's presence. And now we're going to have him run behind Jason Kelce. Now, a Jason Kelce-less line. And again, what the role of Jason Kelce was on his team, and we all know what he was. He was more than just the center. He was the center, the leader, the captain, the heart, and the soul. He was all of that. He was the guy pulling. He was the guy shifting. He was the guy kind of directing. Is Cam Juergens ready for all that? No. It's going to take a step backwards. And we're bringing in an all-world running back in order to run behind that? Why would we do that? Does that make any sense? And I'm just being real here. Just being real. All right? And so I like Saquon. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think it's a good move. I really do. But is it the right move? That's the question. Wide receiver. All right, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Father Time in the slot, and I don't know who else. Who am I missing? I'm not gonna put Dallas Goedert here in this group. I'm just gonna leave him separate as a tight end. So Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown on paper are difference makers at any level of football on any team. Any team would take them. Any team would want them here. Any team would be more than happy to be them on their team. I get that, right? When it's going good, they're some of the best players in the world. But when it's not going good, we've already seen what A.J. Brown can provide to this team, right? What did A.J. Brown's provide from this team when things started going bad? What did he provide? Well, he didn't provide leadership. He didn't provide culture. Now, he provided A.J. Brown and how it was affecting him and how things were not right. And he's doing his job. Everything is fine with me, but and I'm not blaming anybody. We went rogue. What does A.J. Brown provide to this team when things are not going well? Because I think the losses are going to start piling up a little bit next year. And I think leaders on this team are going to be tested next year, more so than they were last year. Minus Jason Kelsey, minus Fletcher Cox. Who fills that void? A.J. Brown? Slay? They're filling the void of leadership on this team. We're going to need leaders on this team next year. Is A.J. Brown prepared to be a leader and a wide receiver at the same time? Or should I say the right kind of leader and a wide receiver at the same time? I don't think he is. I think A.J. Brown is prepared to be A.J. Brown. I'm just saying. Devontae Smith puts his head down and goes to work. I'll give him that. And I honestly believe, I think he's going to take his ball and go home when he can. I don't think he's sticking around for this circus anymore. I think when he's able to be a free agent, whenever they do let him go, I know the Eagles will probably try to extend him if they possibly can. I don't know. I just don't think he wants to stick around for this. I don't. And but I would hope that he does. And then who's the slot receiver? Is it me? Are they waiting for me to come forward and sign my contract to be a slot receiver? Because that would be not an upgrade. I'm telling you. Julio Jones would still be a better option than me. I mean, who's the slot receiver on this team? Would they be signed Parker? I mean, who's the slot receiver? I'm asking. Who the hell's the slot receiver? So is the wide receiver group better or worse than they were last year? I guess they're the same too, which doesn't really make me feel better. Steve chimes in with Swift, fewer tire mileage. Yeah, I agree. I really do. And then based on how many times we run the football, Steve, I don't understand why we would go this way. If they throw more out of the backfield, that could make a bigger offensive difference. Barkley is a better blocker, but less available. Yeah, if they throw a lot, they may need them. But you're going to ask, again, there's a lot of X's and O's here that, and I'll get to that here in a second. Actually, I want to talk about that in a second. Let's go to our quarterback. Right, A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, folks, is about to begin his fourth season, or his fifth season as an Eagle, with his fourth different offensive coordinator. Fifth season as an Eagle, fourth different offensive coordinator. Does Jalen Hurts strike you as the type of person who can deal with that, he can easily roll with those punches? It wasn't one of the biggest things we talked about Jalen Hurts was routine and familiarness and being like comfortable. Fourth offensive coordinator in 5 years. What is that for him? Is that hindering his progress and growth on this football team? Fourth offensive coordinator in 5 years. Are we doing the right by Jalen Hurts? Is his backtracking or regression in part due to the Eagles and their inability to hire the right coaches? Or say, Howie Roseman? Fourth offensive coordinator, fifth year. Now, what about Jalen Hurts and the rest of the National Football League? Is it possible that the National Football League has figured out Jalen Hurts? Just maybe a little bit. And maybe they know how to defeat him. Can't read defenses, right? He kind of reverted back to that thing last year, right? They throw some kind of funky scheme at him. He kind of freaks out. Do you think the rest of the NFL has figured out how to beat Jalen Hurts? Just saying. It's a possibility. And then finally with Jalen Hurts is what kind of leader is he? Is he the stoic leader that doesn't allow pressure to kind of come down on his shoulders like he was told to me by Big Al during the Buffalo comeback where he was on the sidelines sitting there with a blank look on his face, and Al said, no, that was stoic, man. That was the man of the moment. He was not allowing himself to get caught up in that moment. He knew he had to come out there and say, you know what, no problem, I'm going to take him to a victory. Or is he the leader a few weeks later that had that same stoic, blank-ass look on his face, and people were wondering, why doesn't he ever look in a tablet? Why doesn't he ever talk to anybody? What's going on over there? What leader is Jalen Hurts? Somebody tell me, because I don't know. But we're going to ask him to step up and be more of a leader because we're minus 2 veteran leaders this year. 4th offensive coordinator, 5 years. Defenses might have figured him out. What kind of leader is he? Are we better or worse with the quarterback position this year than we were last? I'll say the same. And then tight end, right? Dallas Goedert. When healthy, when on the field, probably one of the top 5 tight ends in all of the NFL, right? Problem is, he's rarely healthy. And 2, the Eagles figured out how to not get him the football because of their scheme. And 3, even if they do figure out how to get him the football with their 4th different offensive coordinator in 5 years, how many footballs do you think are available on the offensive side of the ball? 1. So A.J. Brown's going to be cool with Dallas Goedert getting, say, 7 to 8 receptions a year, or a game, taking those 7, 8 away from him because he's such a stoic leader and a team-first kind of guy. That's not going to bother him, especially if the Eagles lose. Or maybe not so much. So listen, that was my offensive retrospect of the Philadelphia Eagles right now, right? Again, we can't sit here and tell you that who's better or worse and basically what's going to happen. We can't. Draft's coming up. Howie Roseman's 9th draft. Three first-round picks still on this team that he's drafted over his last 8. We can't tell. But to listen to some of the people on this network, to listen to the homer rally flags being whipped around in the air, you would think the Eagles are one player away from turning this thing into a dynasty. And I just cited out a bunch of things that are really up in the air, a bunch of things that could go a lot of different ways, and a bunch of things, to me, that have not been addressed. So as you continue your viewing day here on EOP, and by the way, you better do it because you don't know what you're missing until you miss it, and I don't want you to miss it. And here's our schedule for the rest of the week. Right now, a Party on Broad is happening, so I'm going to wrap this up, but they're going to do their draft big board, and then everything else we got here this week on EOP. Make sure you're tuning in and making your own opinions because that's really what it comes down to. So I hope the heck that's what you guys do. Let me take one last look around the comment sections, and then we're going to kind of turn it off for the night. Swift, your mileages. Yeah, did that one already, Steve. Steve says, Spencer Turnbull, 10 innings pitched, 4 hits, 0 runs. Yep, he's definitely working out so much. He's working out really well. I mean, last year he was coming back from Tommy John. Spencer, this was it was a smart move by Dombrowski. I'll give him that. It was a good move as a 5th starter. And now we heard Walker's going to be out for at least another month. Hurts had 7 coordinators in his last 8 years. There you go. So Steve actually makes me feel a little worse about this. That's right. I forgot about his college life. Yep. 7 coordinators in his last 8 years, 4 out of his last 5 professional years. And everything's okay here, right? We don't have a problem with this. This is because Hurts can handle these types of things. He's that kind of guy. Get the hell out of here. If the NFL has figured out Hurts, they will know. You will know it. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you there, Steve. Absolutely agree. All right. Listen, everybody. Great show. Thank you for coming. We unearthed we made some great progress tonight, right? We talked a little about the Flyers and why I think things have kind of fallen off, and not necessarily upset about it. Yeah, it's concerning. Some areas new areas have popped up that need to be addressed. We talked about some of the areas that might have really kind of led to this. We talked Phillies, 9 games in, not much of a sample size for 2024, but definitely some trends that are still left over from 2023. Where is the coaching? What are we going to do about it? I'm not saying get rid of the team, but we may want to do something with the coaches. What's going on? Where's the message? Where's the locker room? Where's the manager? And then we talked about the Eagles and kind of started our retrospective on the Philadelphia Eagles 2024 in lieu of or in sight of the 2024 NFL draft here in a couple weeks. Howie Roseman's 9th draft on the job. He has 3 of 8 of his first-round picks still here. Well, I guess 3 of 7 because he didn't have a first-round pick in 18. 34 of those players have graded out to be busts, straight up busts. They're either gone or here, but really not doing much. 14 of them I can honestly say that he hit on, and 9 that are currently still out of question marks. But yet we're going to turn the draft over to him yet another year because he knows what, and all the other stuff on the Eagle offense that I'm concerned about that hasn't been fixed, that miraculously is still there. And will it really go away in one off season? I don't know. But it was kind of to sort of tamp down some of the anti-Eagle rhetoric that comes, the hate that comes my way for being real about this football team, for not wearing sunglasses or waving a homer towel. I'm real about this football team. There's real problems here. There's real issues with this team with personnel. There's real issues with this team with scheme. There's real issues with this team with culture. We don't have a good culture with this football team. We saw it ourselves. When the going got tough last year, they turtled. The culture was non-existent. Nobody pulled anybody out of it. No, they started pointing fingers at each other. That's not culture. Well, that's culture. That's a bad culture. So don't tell me there's good culture here. We have a head coach that I don't think anybody, out of the 4 coaches that were left in the playoffs last year, would anybody choose our head coach out of those 4, with maybe the exception of Dan Campbell? And I can make a big argument to go with Dan Campbell. Nobody would choose Nick Sirianni over the other 3, not in any way. And we don't even know what he really does this year. So broke some ground there. We will continue our retrospective on defense next week with the Eagles. So continue on with that. No first-round pick is more important than the one the Wings have this year. Yeah, that's a good point. Wings coming off a real bad season there, Mike. I hear you, man. I hear you. I feel your pain, brother. But listen, everybody, thank you for coming on tonight. Make sure you're checking out everything here on the Edge of Philly Sports. I will see you throughout the week doing some stuff on the Clear the Ice and the Fighting's Final. Until we talk again, what do they say? That's right. That's the news, and I'm out of here.